This cryptic line from Dostoyevsky has puzzled minds for decades. But what kind of beauty was he talking about? Art, truth, or the silent power of a pure soul? Now picture this. A man who never lies, never manipulates, and doesn't chase power. He sees no one as a stepping stone, but as a fellow traveler in this chaotic world. Now ask yourself, how would today's society react to someone like that? Would we admire him, or quietly label him a fool? This is the soul of the idiot. Prince Myshkin is a radiant presence in a dark world. He doesn't play games. He doesn't fight ego with ego. He simply chooses to be good. And that, some say, is his biggest mistake. But was he really a fool? Or did his kindness expose something uncomfortable about us? Think about your own life. Have you ever tried to help someone, only to be misunderstood or dismissed? Have you ever shown compassion and felt like people saw it as weakness? Or worse, took advantage of it? If so, Dostoevsky might be right. Our world doesn't know what to do with genuine goodness. In the next few minutes, we'll go deep into one of the most haunting works in literature. We'll explore why a man so full of light ends up consumed by the shadows around him. Was he a misunderstood visionary? Or was his goodness simply too fragile for the world we've built? Stick around till the end, because this journey might just change how you see kindness and the meaning of your own life. Imagine stepping back into society after years of isolation. Your mind shaped by silence, your heart untouched by the games of the world. You expect warmth, recognition, but instead, everything feels off. The colors are too bright, the voices too sharp. People speak, but nothing sounds true. It's not home, it's a distorted mirror. That's how the idiot begins. Prince Myshkin returns to Russia after years of treatment in Switzerland for epilepsy. But what he brings back is not just a fragile body, it's a rare soul unscarred by deceit. He doesn't know how to hate. He doesn't know how to pretend. His gaze is unfiltered, like a child seeing the world for the first time. On the train to St. Petersburg, he meets two strangers, Rogozhin, a man burning with obsession, and Lebedev, a cunning civil servant who hides ambition behind politeness. Myshkin, unaware of the masks others wear, treats them like old friends. He opens up without a trace of calculation. No agenda, just truth. And this is where the friction starts. In a society built on performance, someone who refuses to act becomes unsettling. In the best case scenario, he's harmless. In the worst, dangerous. Because someone who sees through the illusion threatens those who depend on it. When Myshkin arrives in high society, the discomfort only deepens. He doesn't crave status. He doesn't play by unspoken rules. He treats servants and aristocrats with the same warm regard. And instead of being celebrated for his humility, he's met with suspicion. In a world of hidden motives, honesty looks like madness. He wants nothing. No power, no recognition, no control. He simply is. And that's precisely what unnerves everyone around him. Because when you meet someone who refuses to play the game, you start to question why you're playing it at all. Is he a saint or a fool? That question echoes through every room he enters, and slowly society begins to make up its mind. Truth can be a gift, but it can also be a death sentence. Imagine a world where no one filtered their words, where every thought was spoken without caution or disguise. It sounds liberating, right? But also terrifying. Because under our polished masks, we all carry contradictions we'd rather hide. Prince Myshkin doesn't hide. He doesn't calculate. He doesn't perform. He says what he feels, trusts what he sees, and moves through the world without wearing armor. To some, it feels refreshing. To most, it feels dangerous. In a culture where prestige depends on appearances, raw sincerity is an act of rebellion. He enters Russian aristocracy like a mirror held up to their illusions. He sees no difference between a banker and a servant, a duchess and a drifter. For him, human value isn't earned through wealth or bloodline. It's in how one treats another soul. That vision cuts deep because it exposes the absurdity of the system everyone else has agreed to obey. He doesn't know the rules, unwritten codes that keep people at arm's length, maintain power structures, avoid vulnerability. He responds to insults with grace, to manipulation with trust, to betrayal with forgiveness. And that makes him intolerable. Because in a world that feeds off control, someone who refuses to control or defend himself becomes an anomaly. Society doesn't know what to do with him, so they turn him into a spectacle. Some laugh, others poke, a few even admire him, but no one truly understands. His presence forces people to confront something they've buried, the memory of their own innocence. And that, more than anything, is what they fear. Because if one man can live without masks, what does that say about the rest of us? Most people miss it, but The Idiot is not just a story about a kind man. It's a spiritual parable. Dostoyevsky once said he wanted to create a truly beautiful human being. But he wasn't speaking of physical beauty. He meant moral clarity, a soul that embodies goodness, not just preaches it, but lives it, regardless of how the world reacts. Myshkin is that soul. Like Christ, he refuses to defend himself. He doesn't retaliate when insulted, doesn't fight back when humiliated. He forgives without hesitation. He absorbs the pain of others without projecting it. And that's exactly why society turns on him. Because goodness, when unshakable, becomes unbearable for those who've compromised their own. In 19th century Russia, where status and survival depended on playing the game, someone like Myshkin was an offense. He wasn't useful. He wasn't strategic. He couldn't be controlled. And yet, this rejection isn't new. History is full of souls who refuse to use the tools of the world to challenge the world. Socrates, Buddha, Jesus, none of them were spared. Myshkin believes in unconditional forgiveness, in love untainted by need, in the sacred potential of every human heart. But instead of inspiring others, his presence irritates them, because it places a mirror right in front of their carefully constructed selves, and what it reflects is painful. If he can be that pure, then maybe we've chosen not to be. And when people see what they've chosen to abandon, they don't change. They attack the one who reminds them. That's why Myshkin is mocked, used, betrayed. Every act of kindness is interpreted as naivety. Every attempt to help is seen as weakness. And in the end, no one learns from him. Those who touch his life remain trapped in their own patterns. The powerful stay cruel. The bitter stay bitter. The fearful stay guarded. Myshkin, like Christ, doesn't win, not in the worldly sense. His presence is erased not by violence but by disregard. The world doesn't kill him, it simply refuses to hear him. But was he wrong? Or is his failure the greatest evidence that our world still isn't ready for real goodness? That's the question Dostoevsky leaves burning in our minds. And it doesn't come with an easy answer. If there's a face to tragedy in The Idiot, it's hers. Nastassya Filippovna, a woman haunted by abuse, humiliation, and a lifetime of being treated like something broken, irreparable. Society sees her as unworthy, tainted, a fallen figure, beyond redemption. She's not a person to them, but a wound they prefer to ignore. Then comes Myshkin, and for the first time, someone sees her with unclouded eyes. He doesn't want to possess her. He doesn't pity her. He simply wants her to know she matters, that her soul is still intact, despite everything. But what happens when someone who's been treated like an object is finally offered real love? She runs from it, not because she doesn't want to be loved, but because she believes she doesn't deserve it. Her pain has become her identity. She can't separate herself from the shame. So when Myshkin says he loves her, she doesn't hear love. She hears pity, And to her, that's worse than rejection. She begins to self-destruct. Instead of accepting Myshkin's grace, she chooses Rogozhin, a man who wants her, not for who she is, but as a possession. Rogozhin is obsession, chaos, domination, and Nastassya chooses him not out of passion, but as punishment. Proof that she's too damaged to be saved. Myshkin doesn't give up. He keeps trying to reach her, to convince her that her life still holds value, that love can be healing. But Dostoyevsky delivers a brutal truth. You can't save someone who's already chosen their own destruction. Love can't fill a soul that's been trained to reject it. His love doesn't rescue her. It pulls her deeper into despair. The more he tries to heal her, the more she pulls away, until the inevitable happens. Her fate becomes sealed, and Myshkin, despite all his compassion, can only watch as she slips beyond redemption. Was it a mistake to try? Or is the real tragedy that the world created someone like Nastassya, so wounded that she couldn't accept even the purest form of love? It's not just her story. It's a reflection of every soul that has been told, again and again, they're unworthy. And when that lie takes root, love alone is not enough to erase it. What happens when you place a truly good man in the heart of a society built on ambition, manipulation, and appearances? Dostoyevsky doesn't give us a fairy tale answer. He shows us the cruel truth. That man isn't praised. He's discarded. Not because he failed, but because he didn't fit. That's the fate of Myshkin. He doesn't crave power. He doesn't seek recognition. He doesn't know how to lie. But in the Russian nobility of the 19th century, and let's be honest, in today's world too, that's not wisdom. That's a liability. A man who treats everyone as equals is not revolutionary. He's inconvenient. He refuses to see class. He doesn't care about pedigree, money, or reputation. For him, a soul is a soul. Rich or poor, noble or servant, it makes no difference. But in a society where every gesture is a performance, every relationship a strategy, that kind of radical honesty becomes a threat. Not because it's wrong, but because it exposes what everyone else is pretending not to see. Myshkin frustrates the powerful, confuses the ambitious, and disrupts those who live by control. His kindness is unpredictable. He doesn't get offended when he should. He doesn't retaliate when provoked. He forgives when others expect revenge. And this lack of expected response infuriates people more than if he had fought back. In a world of veiled agendas, Myshkin becomes an anomaly that needs to be neutralized, not with violence, but with exclusion. They try to reform him, shape him, teach him how to play the game, but he doesn't change, and because he won't adapt, he's treated like dead weight, set aside, forgotten, pushed out. What does society do with those who don't conform? It erases them. Myshkin isn't assassinated in a dramatic climax. He's crushed slowly by silence, isolation, and the unbearable loneliness of being the only, one who refuses to become what the world demands. He breaks not because he is weak, but because no one else was willing to hold the weight of compassion with him. And Dostoyevsky asks the uncomfortable question: does society truly want good people, or just those who balance morality with cleverness? Maybe Myshkin didn't fail, maybe we did. Every great tragedy begins with a choice, and Myshkin made his early. He chose goodness. He chose forgiveness over revenge, trust over suspicion, love over control. But Dostoyevsky offers no comfort. In this world, goodness doesn't always lead to redemption. Sometimes it leads to ruin. Myshkin's fall doesn't come with a thunderclap. It's slow, like sand slipping through fingers. He's not defeated in a dramatic battle. He's not taken down by conspiracy or violence. His destruction is quiet, gradual, and the spark that ignites it all is Nastassya Filippovna. From the beginning, Myshkin believes he can save her, that his love can restore what the world has shattered. But she's been broken for too long. Her identity is built from pain, shame, and the belief that she's beyond saving. Myshkin sees her as whole. She sees herself as ruined. And that gap between how he sees her and how she sees herself is a chasm too wide to cross. When he proposes to her, it's not heard as a gesture of love, but of sacrifice. And Nastassya doesn't want to be someone's charity. She'd rather burn than be pitied. So she flees again. And this time, she runs to the fire, Rogozhin. Not out of love, but because destruction feels more familiar than healing. Rogozhin doesn't want to save her. He wants to possess her, to own her pain. And, in the end, that obsession kills her. When Myshkin finds her body, lifeless and cold, something inside him collapses. Not with rage, not with despair, but with silence. Because the truth is unbearable. His compassion wasn't enough. His love didn't save her. And if even the purest goodness can't change someone's fate, what's the point? Myshkin sits beside her killer, Rogozhin, who weeps like a broken child. And what does Myshkin do? He holds his hand, offers comfort, not because it makes sense, but because it's the last thing he has to give. But now that compassion feels hollow, the light that once radiated from him has gone dim. The world didn't need to destroy him. It just had to wait for him to shatter, himself against its walls. He loses everything: his love, his hope, even his mind. The idealist who arrived in Russia with a soul full of grace ends up empty, returned to the same fragile mental state he began in. The cycle completes. The world wins. But did it really? Dostoyevsky leaves us with a painful riddle. Did Myshkin fail, or did the world prove, once again, that it has no place for a truly good man? And if that's true, what does it say about the kind of world we've created? What does the idiot have to say to us now? Society looks different. We live in the age of information, of brands, of hyperproductivity. But the uncomfortable truth Dostoevsky revealed hasn't changed. The world still doesn't know how to handle pure goodness. What happened to Myshkin wasn't random. It was the natural reaction of a culture trained to reward dominance. Throughout history, every time someone rejected power in favor of love or chose compassion over strategy, they weren't celebrated. They were dismissed, called naïve, weak, foolish, and we're still doing it. We praise intelligence, hustle, ambition. We tell ourselves these are virtues. But what happens to people who are simply kind? Not performatively kind, not strategic, just deeply, inconveniently good. At work, they're seen as pushovers. In relationships, they're taken for granted. In public life, they're ignored or mocked. We're raised to compete, to win, to brand ourselves. We're told that vulnerability is a liability and trust is dangerous, that to survive, we need sharp edges. And so the Myshkins of today, they get filtered out, not with violence, but with silence, with apathy, with the slow erosion of being unseen. And that's the darkest truth of all. Maybe the world doesn't just tolerate cruelty, it runs on it. And if kindness doesn't lead to success, is it still worth it? That's the question that haunts us. Because if Myshkin represents an ideal, then his story seems to suggest that this ideal can't survive. That true goodness, untouched by ego, leads to isolation, not triumph. But Dostoevsky doesn't tell us to give up. He doesn't say, "Don't be like Myshkin." Instead, he dares us to face the price of integrity and to ask ourselves what kind of world we're building when we trade soul for safety, compassion for performance. Because if we all give up on being good, what will be left? If Myshkin is the embodiment of goodness and his story ends in tragedy, does that mean being good is a mistake? That's the shadow behind Dostoyevsky's question. Because throughout The Idiot, Myshkin's kindness doesn't transform the world around him. It isolates him, exposes him, breaks him, and that forces us to look straight at something we rarely want to admit. In a world built for survival, is goodness just another form of weakness? Society teaches us to be sharp. From a young age, we're told to toughen up. Don't let them walk over you. Learn to play the game. If you're soft, you'll get crushed. And history seems to prove the point. Those who conquered, who manipulated, who ruled without conscience, left their mark. But what if we've misunderstood what real strength is? Myshkin wasn't afraid. He didn't flinch from pain. He didn't run from humiliation. He had the one kind of courage the world can't comprehend. The courage to remain gentle when everything around you screams for hardness. Think about it. What's more powerful? To strike back when insulted, or to forgive without resentment? To chase your own interests, or to sacrifice for someone else's healing? To harden yourself against the world, or to keep your heart open, no matter the cost? Myshkin didn't avoid confrontation because he was weak. He chose not to play the game. He chose to remain untouched by bitterness. And maybe that's the most radical form of strength there is. But here's the catch. The world doesn't honor that kind of strength. It mislabels it. It calls it fragile, calls it foolish. And that's why people like Myshkin don't just suffer, they disappear. So we're left with the real question. Is being good a flaw? Or is the true weakness giving in to cynicism just because it's easier? Every day, each of us makes that choice. And maybe the world won't reward it. Maybe no one will notice, but without goodness, what are we even fighting for? Now that we've reached the end of this journey, I have to ask, what would you do in Myshkin's place? If you lived in a world that didn't value goodness, would you still choose to be good? Or would you adapt? Would you armor up, sharpen your edges, play the game just to survive? This isn't a theoretical question. It's one we face every day. How often have you seen someone mocked for showing compassion? How often is vulnerability punished, while manipulation is rewarded? We're told to be kind, but we're also warned. Don't be too nice. People will use you. Nothing's free, only the strong survive. So, what do we do? Do we follow Myshkin and risk being broken? Or do we become what the world expects, strategic, guarded, untouchable? But maybe, just maybe, this isn't about choosing between extremes. Maybe Dostoyevsky wasn't asking us to become like Myshkin. Maybe he was warning us about what happens when a society no longer makes room for people like him. Because in the end, the real tragedy isn't that Myshkin failed, it's that the world failed to hold space for his kind of soul. And if we don't want that failure to repeat again and again, we have to ask, what kind of world are we building? A world where only the clever and ruthless rise, or one where compassion still has a place? If this reflection moved something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who's ever felt like their kindness was a burden, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Does goodness still belong in this world? Or has the fate of Prince Myshkin already given us the answer? Because how we answer says everything about who we are.